as many of you have been involved, but for those of you who have not been as involved, just going to walk through the process of how we actually generate the fantastic products that we've generated through the community and the engagement that we do. So, and this is a process that's been refined over the 12, 13 plus years that we've been operating, and it's actually leveraged off a lot of collaboration with many other groups. So the first stage is the pre-launch, and to sort of step us through that, I want to introduce Stewart Brand, who's our principal for global metallurgy. So Stewart, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Good evening, everyone, and greetings from Perth, Western Australia. I was really proud to be associated with the launch of the GMET subcommittee this year, which has got off to a fantastic start with incredible support from across the industry. The three key elements that GMG look for and seek to address before launching a project are industry consultation. In this case, it included a GMG member survey that identified GMET as a focus area. And this was coupled with some very eager members who had some problems that really needed to be solved at an industry level. A clear problem statement and industry demand. So speaking from the trenches of GMET, there's incredibly high alignment on our focus areas, which really supports the definition of clear problem statements. And finally, an industry landscape to ensure no competing efforts. And here I believe that GMG has a unique platform. No other organization has the breadth of membership, cuts across the mining value chain, has the geographic reach, and a proven and successful process that delivers results. Next slide, please. One of the reasons for launching a GMET subcommittee is that geometallurgy is a highly fragmented discipline, which makes collaboration really challenging even within companies. It doesn't have a broad and deep ecosystem that extends from academia through to mining companies, testing laboratories, software developers, and consultants. Combined with the substantial technical challenges that lie ahead that will require even more front-loading of ore body knowledge, a step change increase in collaboration and creativity is a necessity to leverage our collective knowledge in problem solving. Collaboration must be executed deliberately. It won't happen by accident, and it has to be focused and targeted to demonstrate success early to maintain momentum. Next slide, please. So the progress so far, so I think we launched in January or February this year. We've had 2 committee meetings with the third set for later next month. We've had fantastic support from across around the world. And we have identified 6 themes, of which 2 have moved forward into the project proposal phase and 1 learning series. The level of participation, the commonality of our shared challenges, the opportunity to address the challenges at an industry level where they need to be addressed to ensure sustainability has certainly been extremely positive. And I'd certainly recommend anyone or any members that have an industry level challenge that needs an industry level solution to put forward your proposals for consideration. And finally, before I hand back to Andrew, a big thank you on behalf of the GMET community to Heather, Neil, and Mark O'Brien for your support in helping get the GMET subcommittee up and running. Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Stewart. Well done. So once we've defined the problem, as Stewart sort of taken us through there, we need to understand who are the stakeholders that we need to sort of help us progress this body of work. And so there is a deliberate need to sort of understand who are the key stakeholders, and then there's the engagement to make sure that we get those stakeholders involved. Sometimes, depending on the topic, we need to make sure that we've got subject matter experts and people who actually really understand the content to be involved, but it also, the part of the process is to involve everybody. So it's still needing to sort of have that more widespread engagement. There is a need for establishing a steering committee to sort of help steer the process, and this is a really important role. And so if anybody has or is interested, please engage, because we really do need people to be on these committees and to be engaging in this process. Next slide, please. And then we go into the actual, I guess, the body of the work, the actual guideline definition phase, which is really kind of identifying essentially the table of contents that's going to be either in a guideline or even a detailed white paper. Well, what are the key categories that we need to sort of identify? What's the framework that we need to sort of pull together? And this sort of also helps to sort of aggregate the subject matter experts and the bodies, the authors around the actual job. Then there's the revision of and the approval of that framework, just to make sure that we've got the framework right. And there'll be several iterations sometimes of that, and then we ensure that we're getting the right input. And then we move into the content generation. And to run us through that, I'm going to introduce Russell Kennett from Rio Tinto. Russell, over to you.
How you doing? Thank you. So I guess I'll. This is actually the second time through for this underground communications one. It's actually been through the full figure 8 and back to content generation again. But I guess the main part, I guess, obviously is going to get the content from the experts, so the stakeholders of the group, ideally from all reaches of the industry and all of those different stakeholder groups that were mentioned on the earlier slides, the members of GMG. The goal, I suppose, very often is a rough draft to start with. We have assistance from editors and the staff of GMG who can help polish, what's often quite a very rough draft to start with. And I guess validation and verification of the content, sort of reference checks and content checking, so that we produce a balanced and fair assessment, I guess, of whatever the topic is. So I guess obviously underground mine communications infrastructure, it started off as 3 parts, probably nearly 10 years ago, I guess. It's been a while. And the goal is to provide current best practices, with the emphasis on current. Quite a bit's changed. And originally there were, I guess, different focuses in identifying applications, usage scenarios that justified the communications and the expenditure. That's changed to a lot of it becoming perhaps a more of a baseline that a lot of different parts of mining and other technologies and use cases are sitting on top of as an enabler. So basically this one started as 3 different parts, and then this rewrite has reviewed that, gone through a bunch of workshop and committee reviews, taken input from, I think you see the 11 workshops all over the world, and a bunch of steering committee meetings to settle on redoing it as a single guideline, more in line with the sort of modern style of GMG guidelines, and focusing in a little bit more heavily on some of the wireless technologies and a bit more on operation, maintenance, disposal, and refresh. So that sort of reflects a bit more of the sustainable kind of technology model these days, its use in an alignment with, I guess, some of the sort of ESG goals and sustainability goals that you saw in the themes of GMG there. I think that's probably about it, but the content generation, I guess, is, hopefully doesn't run for too long. Some of the challenges are always that you need to actually keep it relatively achievable. Sometimes setting the bar too high in terms of depth or content scope can mean that, especially for a volunteer organization, the content generation can take a long time, and you can risk never finishing. So there are some, I guess, definite lessons to be learned in generating the content for one of these and keeping it to a reasonable sized deliverable for a volunteer organization that is literally relying on the goodness of people's hearts and their willingness to contribute their expertise to industry. So I'll leave it there, and thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Well done. And just to, I guess, further sort of explain, there's various styles of generating content. So we've got the workshops. Sometimes, groups of authors will lock themselves up into a room and basically, punch out a body of content. There's a lot of asynchronous work, circulating drafts and so forth. So it is quite a fluid, but there is, structure to the process. And so one of the key things is that the importance of the steering committee. Any issues can be raised up to the steering committee and dealt with. Sometimes we have, there has been content that has, either deliberately been parked or has generated essentially the impetus for further guidelines, further white papers, further explanations, and it's all part of the process. So as we go into the technical editing, layout, and final review, this is where the working group say, okay, are we done enough to sort of meet the objectives outlined in the initial phase that Stewart took us through with the pre-launch. So there is that agreement at the working group level, and then the project steering committee reviews the comments, and then it moves into a final layout. The final layout is important because that's where the final versions of any diagrams, any content, so it gets fleshed out from a flow perspective, from a readability perspective, and so forth. And then it moves on to the vote and publications. And I want to introduce Chirag Sathe, again from BHP, to take us through. So over to you, Chirag.
Thanks, Andrew. And first, I would like to thank Carl for his guidance, support, and leadership throughout these last few years, so the challenging years. Greatly appreciate your support and guidance, Carl. Regarding the voting, so the next step, as Andrew said, so once it has gone through all the rigmarole of developing a content and going through the technical editing and the final layout, it goes out for voting. And the first is voted by the members who are in the working committee, working group. And most of the times we do receive some feedback from the members saying they have some suggestions, or if there are something which is kind of a no-go for them for saying yes for the final document, that will come through at that time. And we review those items and try to find a common ground on those things. That's where the collaborative nature of GMG is, that we would like to take everyone together. But at the same time, we don't want to dilute the content to such a level that it becomes of no use. So that's where we strike a balance and get the vote. Once that vote is done, it goes to the board for approval. So next slide, please, Andrew. So this is just some dates for the system safety guideline that has been published recently. I was the project co-leader, so very happy and thankful to all the team members and the support and the volunteers that we received. It has been more than a year's worth of work. It took long, but we finally managed. Our goal was 9 months, but that's the thing. You have to target something and then try to achieve it. If you can't achieve it, that's fine, but your target should be tight enough. It should be challenging. So we had the voting done. Final approval has come through on 21st of March. It goes to the board for approval for the publication, which is, again, it's essential part so that the higher authority guidance comes through. If there are some serious issues with the document, then it could come back to review by the steering committee. And this guideline has gone for a Spanish translation. That was a big demand for it, to translate it in Spanish. So that work is happening. And thanks for all our South American friends who are supporting to translate it, and others who understand Spanish. Thanks, guys. The next, please. So just on a system safety guidelines, the purpose was to provide a guidance on how to apply system safety in autonomous mining. This has come out, as Andrew was alluding to. We initially started with functional safety guideline because that was felt during autonomous implementation of autonomous systems guideline development. Need for functional safety was highlighted. Functional safety, when we were developing, need for system safety was highlighted. And now we have come to the final chapter in that, I think, system safety. But the next chapter could be automation and electrification system safety. Who knows? We'll see in future. So this document has got the standard V model of life cycle. It explains what are the different phases. The important thing in this one is about the product upgrade. So from all the experienced OE mining companies, we got this information about how we can manage product upgrade and ensure that the system safety of the overall autonomous system. That was a very important part of it. There were several other sort of safety case development. Those are the standard thing, but we also provided some recommended resources for safety case. The good thing about this document was we had regulators across the world taking part in it. They were having a close eye on the document because they might be or most likely will be using this as a reference document. They can't say you must, but this is a reference document, which is a big take for us for our efforts. And the last thing I would say, please, all of you guys, if you can provide support for project steering committee lead, we welcome, because there are two more things that are happening in autonomous mining working group. That's a zero entry and the small vehicle autonomous system. So we do need your support. Thank you. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Chirag, and well done. So one thing I wanted to also highlight, when Chirag said that the board approves the publications, what the board is approving is that the process has been followed. That's an important piece that needs to be understood. So we're quite, I guess, focused on making sure that we follow the process, because as Chirag mentioned, we want to make sure that we bring the right content developers or authors into the mix. We have a good representation, and we'll iterate until we do. And so that's part of that process, and so that's what the board's approving, and that's why we need to have a committed and well-functioning board. So that's a really important part of the process. Okay, we're getting into the last phase, and that's the industry education and feedback. So there's obviously, once we've got things published, there is the dissemination. It goes onto our website, but there's sometimes the need for a engagement process to really educate and get the message out that this material is available. But also to try and then also capture a feedback loop. A lot of our materials starting to get more and more used in academia and teaching purposes. It's being used by organizations for referencing and guidance on various topics. It's been used for justification of projects and the like. And so getting that feedback is really important. So one thing we're sort of looking to sort of increase is trying to capture those stories, capture that feedback, and feed that back into the working groups, but also feedback into the process. What can we do to improve the process? What can we do to improve the experience of not only the content creators and generators, but also throughout the whole process? And then there's, as we mentioned, the autonomous working group. When we were going through the implementation guideline for autonomous systems, that's when the functional safety topic came out. We need a dedicated, as Chirag mentioned, and then out of that came the system safety. So there's often a lot of these projects stimulate other important topics and projects to kick off. So at the end, there is very much a focus from the project steering committee to determine what's the next steps, what's the plan for some of this content. And sometimes it might be collaborating with other working groups. Sometimes it might be passing on a key topic that's come up in one working group to another working group. And so this is sort of part of the integrated process and collaboration that GMG represents. So with that, hopefully that gave you an overview, and thank you to my co-presenters on taking you through the project lifecycle.